Hello, everybody, and welcome to the webinar. My name is Adina, and I'm very happy to be able to be part of a team who organizes this. Um, we are part of Eurostar Teamstar competition, and um, this year, participate to the competition, we had to organize an event um, in our local town, but we actually thought of getting it a bit more than our local town. So what we thought to do is to make it as a live webinar, and we invited speakers from the Eurostar conference to join us. Yes, they are in the call, and we hope you will enjoy it. With this occasion, we would like to thank Tabra de Testare for supporting us. It's very nice to have a local community like Tabra de Testare because like they support people to organize events each month in 4 major cities of Romania, happen local meetups, and once a year there's an autumn camp, like an event that all participants can join. And this year is going to be in October. If you want to have a call for PayPal, feel free to do that. What else should I say before we start? Let's see. So the theme this year at the Eurostar conference is magical testing. And what we thought of maybe to start saying what the magic of testing means for each one of us. Who wants to start?
Shamel, you're the president.
I think Hybe wants to start. He mentioned earlier.
So I start what the magic of testing is, or well, for me the magic of testing is that I get paid to learn. And when I was a young kid, I tried out everything. If you gave me a toy or a piece of metal, I will just plug it into the wall and get it electrified. So my parents were really cautious what they let me do. If you take me to the supermarket as a small kid, I would start testing vegetables by just eating them raw. I want to learn everything. I want to know everything. I want to find out how stuff works. And being able to do that, getting paid to do that, and even get asked in this webinar to talk about it, I think that's magic.
You're going to go next, Shmuel?
Okay. So when I think about the concept of magic in software, then I think that the first type of magic that comes to mind is when we say that something is magic, not because of the trick or of the illusion, but it's just something that it's cute, it's happy, it's flowery, and you say, oh, this is so magic. So I think that in software there's a lot of it, because you keep you're jumping between places, just jumping between places in the software and between different software, different types of knowledge that you pick up, and the feeling is can be a feeling of that's very uplifting, and I think that's the magic of software. It's like being in a in a very happy place overall. So that's.
I guess for me, I agree with Huben and Shmuel. I think there's a lot of what they've said. I suppose what was going through my mind is I've had a career of over 30 years now where I've been able to solve puzzles, and that's magical. It's like I've been able to spend my life finding puzzles and then working out what's caused something to happen, using my brain analytically and instinctively and in every possible way. And I just think that's wonderful to have been able to do that for all these decades. And some of those are technical problems. Some of them are problems with, say, faults that appear in the software. Some of them are to do with people and how they're behaving and trying to understand that. So the magic for me is that I've had a chance to use such a breadth of ideas for problem solving.
Thank you for sharing
Nice.
that with us. Very nice. I was thinking a lot about what the magic of testing would mean for me too. And I was like thinking, and then when we had earlier the discussion preparing the webinar, you were saying that, well, actually, is there really a magic? Because once you find out what's the actual cause of something, it's not that magical anymore. Everything like has a sense as long as you get to that. And I was thinking of that. Thank you for sharing that with me. And then I was thinking, well, you know what's magical for me actually in this job? It's the interaction with people, just being there with the team. And I think also like attitude that we as testers sometimes like we are seen as the bearer of bad news or something like that. We bring bugs and things that go wrong. But then if you can switch that attitude or that mindset to something, okay, let's help the team see how we can prevent some things or how we can make things better. Sometimes like from those separate uh, teams, like you have dev teams and testers team, and they're like separation, and then don't like you or we like you less or so. If we switch that attitude to let's help and let's be together, kind of like something magical happens in the team and things start to work better and the atmosphere is so much nicer and that's where I see magic.
Yeah, that's good.
And to go next to your program today, practically what I would like to do is introduce the speaker. So you had a chance now to hear their ideas about what magic means to them. But it would be good also to know who are these wonderful people who are at the Eurostar conference and they speak there and like who do we have the occasion to speak with? So I will start from left to right. Elena Giorgetta is one of our teammates here in the Freestyle competition. And next one, the speaker actually is Hype. Let me see if I can pronounce the name well. He's from Netherlands. Hype Schots.
Very good. Very good.
Thank you. And Hype is an old friend who has been doing a lot of things. He's a very good speaker. He's a consultant. He's a trainer. He's involved in the RST courses, and he has been in Romania, and he's been a program chair for the RTC conference, and he's been involved a lot in building the program this year. Tell me more, Hype.
Well,
How did I make? There are so many things.
Well, the thing is, if people ask me what I do for a living, I always say and I fully agree with Isabel, is I solve complex problems using IT and again, I get paid to learn. And I did so many different things in my life. I started as a programmer. I ended up in test automation, and it wasn't my thing. And then I found out that testing was my thing. So I've been a tester, I've been a test manager, I've been a trainer, a consultant, a coach, speaker. I've done so many things, and I think I feel very happy for this diversity because I really love trying out stuff. So throw me a topic and give me 6 months and I'll do a presentation on it because I like to learn and I'll find the right people who can teach me everything there is to know about those topics. Basically that's me.
So this is something for the participants, people who view, like throw questions at Hype.
Yes,
Use the YouTube channel. Feel free to ask anything there. I know you've also been participating in the test clinic in the Eurostar conference.
Yes.
Place where people people just go and ask questions and pipe consults.
Yes, Iris and I did that 2 years ago, and that was fun. People just came to us and asked questions, and we would just solve them for there, or find people who were knowledgeable enough to solve it. So yeah, that's awesome. So if you have a problem, go to the Eurostar test clinic this year as well, because there will be awesome doctors there.
Great, thank you very much. The next person, our next speaker, is Isabel Evans. She's from UK, and she has been like lovely to me. Like when I first met her at Star East, I was very happy that she was very involved. She wanted to help in the test lab, and she volunteers a lot. Her main expertise, or at least how I met her, was through user experience. And Isabel, maybe you can tell us more about that, and about yourself and your 30 years, more than 30 years of experience in testing.
Well, yes, that's a long time, isn't it? User experience is, for me, a relatively new interest, perhaps over the last decade or so. So I was a programmer back in the 70s, and then in the 80s I came into testing, and I was doing test automation as well as test design then. And then I got interested in quality management and overall understanding of improvement for organizations as well as for software, and worked with that for a bit. Got more and more interested in people and teams, partly because I'm not a natural team worker. It took me a lot of effort to learn how to do that. So I got very interested in how teams work and how to integrate people together who aren't necessarily good team workers. And then coming out of that, I got interested in usability and user experience, which is the track that I'm following now. And I've just rebooted myself. I've just gone back to school. So I'm studying part-time at the University of Malta at the moment, and hoping to bring together some of those streams of interest that I've had in the past. So rebooting myself at the moment.
The silence of awe in the.
Yes, sorry. I was just asking Isabel for the introduction. And our next speaker is Shmuel Gershon. I was asking, like, is this correctly spelled? Or
Shmuel Gershon, yes. It's
okay, Shmuel is from Israel, so excuse me for not being able to pronounce it correctly.
another correct pronunciation, so you're doing well.
So Shmuel, I think Shmuel is very, very renowned for his tool Rapid Reporter. Many of you might have heard about exploratory testing, notes taking. And Shmuel has also been a program chair at Eurostar 2 years ago. Is it right?
1 year ago, the last one.
1 year ago.
It looks like a long time, but yes.
Shmuel, you've also been involved in test lab, right?
And I've been in the test lab, yes, twice, I think.
Oh wow! Okay. Do you want to tell us more about that?
Yeah, I have to tell that the test lab is my favorite part of Eurostar. So it's a conference about testing, and there is one place where you can actually test, and then you don't need the speakers because you can learn from whoever is sitting there. Usually, someone else like that works in a very different area than you. And as someone running the test lab, it's very, very interesting, like being all the time engaged with people in such a personal level, because when you are a speaker you talk to 50 to 100 people, but when you're in a test lab then you're working one-to-one, So I think it was very rewarding to do that, being able to match people. And when you see someone that's struggling with something specific, you say, "Hey, why don't you contact this other guy who's not a speaker, but he was there the day before, and I saw that he had something on that area that could help." So like all this matchmaking was a lot of fun. And
That's right. And you want to also like share about yourself and your expertise, something that I haven't touched.
well, I have not worked on the field for 30 years. Let me just move so the sensor sees me. But almost 20 years maybe. Like Haib and Isabel, I also started as a programmer. I think back then there were few places to start as a tester. Everybody just programmed. And as a programmer, I programmed everything from vending machines to web interfaces. But then about 15, a little bit, a little bit more than 10 years ago, I started testing at Intel, and I found that that's more or less what I was looking for within programming that I couldn't find. And and I've been testing from software to firmware that's very, very close to hardware through drivers. So every time a different product and a different team. I've been learning a lot. And like you said, I tried to learn mostly about exploratory testing and trying to specialize myself on that area, specifically note taking. I've been observing people taking notes and and done a lot of experiments within my teams on different tools and different methods and media for taking notes. I'm not sure there is like anything we haven't tried, or at least up until a couple years ago that I would be more certain that that was true, because we were still a lot of experimenting. And Rapid Reporter came out of that, so it's a tool that I was created in spare time, but used at Intel at first, and now is used in more than 70 companies, at least that are in touch with me around the world. So I think it's a tool that does very little, and maybe that's what's special about it, that it lets the tester do most of the work. That's
That sounds great. And for those of you who haven't tried yet exploratory testing or note taking in this fashion, I highly encourage you to use it. Like I use it, and my colleagues also use it, and it's really nice and very well structured. Especially if you have questions about what kind of tools or how can you structure your notes.
yeah.
Thank you for that, Shmuel.
We should add that it's people should not be afraid to try it. It's free, and and it comes with sometimes slower, sometimes faster customer support, so you can ask questions even about how to implement this type of testing into your work. That's most of the questions that I get. And but yes, the tool is completely free to download and use for commercial purposes as well. So no fear. That's
Thank you. The next thing we have on our list is for the speakers to share their um, knowledge and insights from their own expertise. This will be 10 to 15 minutes each, and we're going to have some small break after each of the talks, just to like get it all in and maybe take some notes or have some time to go and take some cookies. And afterwards, after the three speakers, we will have also a question and answers session. So I highly encourage you to bring out the issues that you're facing every day in testing, and put them in the YouTube channel or Skype them if you have my personal account, or find a way to get them here, because it's a very good opportunity to get them answered by people like Hype, Isabel, and Shmuel. Um, and I think we are ready to start. The first one in our list is Isabel. So if you would like to take the control and share what you have prepared for us today.
Okay. Right. So I do the screen share, application window. Okay. So can you see a slideshow?
Not yet.
Not yet. I've done something wrong. Okay, what have I done? Oh, here we go. Let's try that.
Yes.
Yes? Got a slideshow?
Yes, we can see.
You can see it. Excellent. Okay. Right. So Adina asked me to do something which perhaps referenced Eurostar and what's happening this year. And I'm fortunate enough to be presenting a tutorial which is about user experience and quality in use. So the slides that I'm going to use now are a little extract from that tutorial. So it's 4 or 5 slides from that tutorial. So I'll start by talking about what user experience means. And I think it's really about doing quite simple things that make people's lives better. So it's the experience of the user, of the human being. It's not about the software, it's about everything we're delivering. And the 4 pictures you should be able to see are pictures taken on Leamington Spa Station. It's a little railway station in England. Most railway stations in England have bike racks. But what they've done at Leamington Spa is something a little bit extra. They've put these public bike repair stands there. So there's a pump, you can pump up your tyres, and there's these racks with tools. It's everything you could possibly need to repair your bike. Very simple, very easy to do. And what it's done is it's made the experience of Leamington Spa Station for cyclists much, much better than the experience of any of the other stations around the area. So it's very popular with cyclists. And you can see there, that wasn't difficult to do. It's not expensive, but it's improved people's lives. It's made people's lives better. And you do that by thinking about the people. So I'm going to compare a couple of software users who are both home users, who are both recreational users of software, and just compare what they need. And they're both friends of mine. This first person is very, very keen on Apple equipment and software. He says, you know, the shops are beautiful, the experience of buying the equipment is beautiful, you take it out of the box, the wrapping is beautiful, the machine itself is beautiful, the device, it's curved, it's slim, it's light. He said to me, when I got my iPad, it was so beautiful, I wanted to marry it. And then it lost my calendar entries and emails. So in setting up his iPad to use his Gmail account, he lost his calendar entries and emails. He's not the only person I know that's happened to. And it just dashed that experience a little bit. He was just a bit disappointed, shall we say. But he has a particular need, particular way of doing things. And I'm going to contrast him with somebody else I know, a lady who's in her 90s, and she uses email to contact friends and family all over the world. She doesn't have her own computer. She goes to the library to use the computers there. And I got an email from her, and in the middle of it, she said, the library's open again. It's been closed. That's why you haven't heard from me. To my horror, they've updated their computers. I think what they'd done is they'd taken from 7 up to 10 on Windows or something like that. Everything is just slightly different, which the old girl is finding confusing. Look at the number of exclamation marks. She's in a state here. I'm not sure what the improvement has been, but he has left me struggling a wee bit. Is that not a thing? What's the improvement been? So all these changes, she's been without access to computing and her email for some weeks, and it's not clear what the improvement's been. It's just made her life worse.
Isabel,
Yes?
Let me disturb you. I think we are not seeing the same slide you are.
Okay, is it one called the silver emailers problem?
No, we are still in the UX, in the first one. UX is about making life.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not forwarding the slides when I am?
Yeah, it is showing the PowerPoint and not the slides of the slideshow of PowerPoint.
Yeah, interesting. Right. Well, then in that case, I'm just going to do it from the.
Okay.
There.
So I'm
So there's the
sorry
apple
for
lover.
disturbing.
No, thank you for telling me that. I had no idea. A nice little quirk of that piece of software.
Our
A nice
user
little bit of user
is much
experience.
better.
You can see the second slide now, Apple Lover's Problem.
Yeah, the user experience is much better now.
Oh, good. Of course, you're not getting my pretty animations, but who minds? Okay, so we're on to the silver emailer's problem. And there you can see her, her quote. And so she's struggling. So let's have a think about these two people and what they need. And one of the ways we can do that from a user experience point of view is we can draw up what we call a persona. So with a persona, and you should see an example now with the Apple Lover, we have a characteristic quote from the person, and then we describe their social and demographic characteristics. What's this person like? So we look at our Apple Lover. They want to be on trend, connected, and they want to finish their tasks fast. Their consumer habits, they're an impulse buyer, very keen on Apple in this case. Tech savvy, not an IT specialist, but reliant on being connected. Interested in the arts and media, must keep connected for work and social. And here's a thing that's interesting for testing: what the product must do and what it must never do. It must be on demand. Updates must be transparent. It must never lose data. It must never stall. It must never halt. And the sorts of words that this person is going to use to describe what they're interested in are exciting, seductive, flowing, desirable, flexible. Now notice those are very emotional words, but that's how people interact with equipment, devices, and in the end, software. It's about their emotional response. The functionality isn't enough. If we contrast this with the silver emailer, they want to keep in touch. Very important to have links to old-fashioned paper ways of doing things. Not a high level of consumer from this particular persona, interested in ecology, whole food, doesn't buy much. Low IT expertise, very interested in politics and the world and dance, wants to keep connected. What the product must do is work on demand, not continuously, but when the service is demanded, it needs to happen straight away. And it needs to be like her real world in the language it uses and the appearance. It must never behave unexpectedly. And the experience goals around trust, simplicity, and consistency, a completely different view of what email is about and of what connectivity is about. So, supposing we now make up a user story for each of these people. For the Apple user, what we can do is write a user story, and instead of writing about the functionality that was going to be delivered in that story, we're going to write about the emotions we either want to deliver or we want to prevent. So, as a non-technical person, I want to transfer to the latest gadgets and software without being tied to one source, without losing my calendar entries and emails, because otherwise I'm sad and frustrated. And we've got the user experience words there: flow, trust, and seductiveness. We've got quality and use words. I've just put flexibility on there. And underlying that, the things that we as testers will look at, things like compatibility, portability, interoperability, the things that we measure in our testing. Contrast that with the silver emailer's story. As an intermittent email user, I want to keep in touch with my friends and family without changes to the way I do it, because I've better things to do than learn new technology. Transparency, intuitiveness, and flow. Usability is really important. And A phrase that she'll never have heard and has no need to hear, but which we need to keep in mind: backward compatibility. In other words, when we update something, we need to ensure that people can still do it in the way they used to do it, if that's what they want, because it's the person that's important, not the technology. So one of the things we can do when we're looking at user experience is we can build up these radar charts. So if you look in the center, we've got a radar chart, and we've got aspects of using the system around the outside: response times, device choices, user error prevention, domain standards, ability to complete tasks. And what you can see is the dotted line is the Apple lover, and the solid line is the silver emailer, and they have quite different profiles. So what we do when we're measuring, when we're designing user experience is we look at these profiles and personas, and we build up, by discussion, by focus groups and other methods, we build up scores around these attributes. And then if you look at those scores, you can see they're quite different. So you might be looking at what you're building and saying, oh, we must always do a performance test. But notice that the performance test may be of no importance or interest to some of your end users. They're not so worried about response time. For other users, it'll be very important. For some users, choice of software and devices is important. For some, it's not. For some, aspects of usability will be very important, and for some, less important. So when we're looking at what tests we choose to do, we have to think, who are we testing for? And then we decide on the tests we're doing, depending on the persona who we're representing when we're doing those tests. Sometimes it's so extreme you actually need different interfaces for the different people, but that's something I'll cover in the tutorial. So really, I just wanted to introduce you to some of those concepts. And I wanted to say to you, when we're testing, we use our heads, we learn, we use intellect, we're analytical. But actually, when you're thinking about user experience and you're thinking about making people's lives better, what I want you to focus on as well is, what does your heart tell you? What does your gut tell you? Are you testing heart and soul? We need to test with the whole of our beings. That's really all I wanted to share with you today. Thanks for listening.
Wow. Thank you, Isabel.
So now I unscreen share. How do I do that? Stop sharing. Right, you should be back to normal now. Is that correct?
Yeah, we can
Good.
see you now. One question: how come the soul is at the feet?
Oh, it's a pun. In English, the bottom of the feet is called the sole of the feet, S-O-L-E. But of course, sounds the same as soul, as in spirit, S-O-U-L.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, I'm looking at the time now. Maybe we can have like 2 or 3 minutes break and then go to the next presentation from Shmuel.
Okay. I'll get a drink and I'll be back in 2 minutes.
Maybe you can share some of the cookies with us, Adina? Oh, okay. So now by
That's just
magic.
unkind.
I'll move. Be back soon.
So are we back? Ready to start?
Yes.
Yes, I hope so. Should I?
Yes, please.
Okay. So welcome and back from the break. Now it's my turn to share the screen. Now, okay. Now, when I share the screen now, I can't see you. I hope you are nodding and smiling and agreeing with whatever I'm saying. So let's start. So the theme of Eurostar is magic, tasting the magic, and the magic of testing. And it was also the general background to these webinars. And when I was thinking about what to say, I decided to talk on something on that area and try to go a little bit deeper on how we can relate magic to testing. And if we are talking about magic, then I think I should start with a magic trick. So I have dealt to you in your screen. I hope you can see my screen, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, 6 cards. Now choose one of them. Pick a card, any card that you want. Do not tell me. Do not tell your friends, people at the Tabara de Testare. Keep it a secret. I need it to be memorized by you. And I will now use a new technology that of Google Hangouts that will tap into you across the network, and will be able to discover what kind of card you are choosing. Not only the kind, but also the number and everything. So have you memorized the card that you chose? Because now I am covering them. Now, for it to be very well memorized and transferred to me, whoever has a pen and paper or a computer or a cell phone, write down the card that you wrote. And I'm giving you, or just write it in your memory very strongly. I'm giving you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I hope you remember which card you picked. Because I am now going to shuffle this deck very thoroughly, and pick one at it will seem to you that I'm picking a random one, but I'm actually, with this technology, picking the same one that you chose, and I'm just discarding. There's no card, one card is missing now. And I'll reopen the cards and let's see if I managed. Aha, the card you picked is gone. That's magic for you. You see, now some of you may know the trick. Some of you may have just discovered it, and many of you got a half a second to a second of awe and a surprise. You may ask your friends how someone that knows the trick how it's done, or you can maybe, if you want to know how I did it, you can ask in the Q&A area. And it will be answered by the end of the presentation. So that's for the ones that are very curious how this technology works. How can this technology across the network overseas get into your memory or your piece of paper? So, well, that was magic, or maybe not. Maybe it was just a trick. It's software testing magic. So when we are dealing with software, are we dealing with software testing magic? When I started to think about it, I thought that maybe I think we are dealing with the opposite of magic. We are looking at something that may look as magic, Isabel today reminded me of the quote of Arthur C. Clarke, I think, that says that any sufficiently advanced technology is undistinguishable from magic, where we see software doing things, sending voices and images across the network and things happening, and it looks like magic to us, and then suddenly it breaks, and that also looks like magic to us. And our job is not to look at it as magic, but to try to break it and dissect and take all this magic out. And there's a TV series called Fool Us. Maybe some of you has seen the TV series. Now, the two magicians that you see on screen are Penn and Teller. They are from the most famous magics in Las Vegas. They have their show in Las Vegas with live magic. And they have this TV show where a magician from anywhere in the United States or the world comes up with a new magic method or a magic performance and shows it for an audience that includes Penn and Teller. And they, as experienced magicians, they watch it from afar and they have to figure out how was this magic done? How was the trick? What is the method used? And then they think about it, they look at it, they discuss between themselves, and if they discover, they will explain. Like in some secrets, they do not tell the actual secret, but they will show that they know how the magic was done. And if they are not able to discover how the illusion was done, then they give a Fool Us trophy for the magician. So they are two experienced magicians with a lot of knowledge on the practice and theory of magic. And they use this to dissect magic and open it and see what's happening inside. So they fight magic. They are magicians, but they fight magic on this show by using critical thinking. They know magic. They know a lot of methods, and they know how you can force a choice. Maybe that's what I did on the first slide. They know that people can count cards and it's not a real count, or that they can shuffle a deck and it's not a real shuffle. They can pick a card at random, but it was not random. They can misdirect. They can hide things by lapping or palming. They can use wires. They know all the methods, and they know how a magician is presenting it to people, trying to control the attention or make use of the information gap, things that he knows that the audience doesn't know, trying to make a suggestion with a story or with visual, tapping into the familiarity of what people expect to happen. And so they use all their knowledge about magic to cancel the effect of magic. For them, when they see something happening, they know there's no magic. This illusion is all based on a trick that happens on behind the scenes. And we are not magicians, so most of us aren't, but we are software testing, and software is filled with illusions. And with our critical thinking arsenal, we can fight these illusions. So we have our knowledge of bugs, how they happen. And the way we do that is because we know taxonomies of bugs, different bugs that can happen, why they can happen. We know operating systems, how they work. We understand the software and the APIs and their limitations. We know what are all the elements of software. We have lists that show us what can be a bug and what not. We know hardware. We know about testing, what ideas, how can we put this software into challenges to understand its real nature. We know about the product, how it's operated, its environment, the people using it through personas like Isabel showed, or sometimes, so we have our users. We have our users. Their customers are also affected by our software, and they also have a perception of it. Programmers, the teams, managers, all of them have an effect on how things turn out. And with them, we can take a software and dissect, even without looking at the code. But looking at the code is also, I should put it here somewhere, is also a way of understanding what's happening inside. But even without looking at the code, we can understand that, okay, if this button made that happen, okay, and we have the logs, let me see what's happening. And then we start to look into the behind the scenes of the software, or at least we start to model it in our head. And at that point, we don't need to trust our instincts anymore. because our instincts are easily fooled, like we saw before. Now, before I go into a software example, I want to, let's make another game of cards. So don't trust your instincts. I have to stop sharing so you can see me again. Do you see me again? Okay. So now I will make appear here from Magic a deck of cards. Aha! So I have this deck of cards. This is a new deck of cards. You can see that it's sealed. Adina, can you confirm to the webinar that it's a new deck sealed with plastic? Yes. Okay. So now let's open this deck in front of the camera. They have this wire, this thing that open it. And new deck of cards for you. And let's take the cards now. So here you have them. I forgot how many cards should be in a deck of cards. There's 52, but then you have the jokers and you have the rules. Oh, this one comes without rules. Never mind. Let's shuffle it. So the card have not left your visions. And we can start playing. So I'll play maybe, I don't know, I can play with Hybe. So it seems fair, like we can play with this deck. I just opened it. Shall we start, Hybe, to play?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Now, the problem is that we do start playing now. It will not be fair because one of the cards is here, hidden in my sleeve. Aha! So while I was playing here with the cards, then I, with my fantastic sleight of hand, just moved one card from the deck into my sleeve without you noticing. See? I fooled you with an illusion. And that's also wrong. I fooled you with another illusion because the deck was just, I took it beforehand. But I saw you opening, you say, and I just opened it from the other side before the webinar started, and I closed again with some sellotape. So there's a lot of things happening behind. So I think I'm not a magician, but there are so many methods of doing this trick. I could also have just taken a card from a different deck and saying that it was missing from here, but it wasn't, right? So it's a lot of things can be happening, and when you start to think about everything that can happen, then you can start to understand what's happening, what can be the options. The same happens with software. And I want to bring one example. This is, I want to share with you a bug, real bug. So let's say, just like I did with the card, right? This is a card, you've played with it thousands of times. So there's a software. You restart it, and it works. It's okay. It looks okay. Now you restart it 300 times. It's okay. It looks okay. You've been using it for years. Okay, it works. Sometimes we would even say about a software like that it works like magic, or it works like a charm. So let's dissect this piece of software magic. Let's dissect Squid. Squid is a Linux proxy server. Maybe you have used it in real life. So it's a very famous one. It's available in the major distributions. For the sake of the presentation, let's imagine that you are the user of Squid. Now you have used it many times, tens of times or more, like working as a server managing this proxy server. Now, is Squid installation flow okay? Is there a problem with it? I would say it's okay. Can we restart it? Yes. If you look at the internet for instructions to how to restart Squid, you may come with something with some steps that are as complicated as what appear now in the screen. You press Squid restart. Or if it's a daemon, a service running, then you would use service Squid restart. And at that point, it stops and it starts. Fantastic, right? Now, if we get used to it, we don't start to look for what can be happening. How does this stop and start happens? Maybe there is a problem. And because no one looked for the problem, Well, the problem appeared. And you can see here, this is copy-pasted from a real bug on the Red Hat database. After install a test package, when I try to stop Squid or restart Squid when it's already running, it keeps waiting to stop, and then suddenly starts deleting all files on the hard drive. I'm not making this up. It's hard to diagnose anything more at that point because a lot of files on the machine are deleted. So, okay, sorry, programmer, I cannot send the logs because they are all gone. Now, this bug really looks like magic. It's, wow, we are just restarting a proxy. How come everything is gone? How come we've lost? I don't know. I had my doctorate thesis here, 3 years of work. It's all gone. You can see this is from the Red Hat Bugzilla. You can see that this was opened on a testing version of Squid, and it says restarting testing build of Squid results in deleting all files in the hard drive. Reproducible, 100%. You log in, you start Squid, service Squid start, you restart, service Squid restart. Actual results, all files are deleted on the machine, not actually what he expected, which was Squid is restarted. So how can something like this happen? And then we have to start using our own methods, just like Penn and Teller do. You have to understand bug taxonomies and operating systems and testing ideas, the operation of the product. So it was a restart. The user was not stopping and then starting the Squid. He did a restart. So if the restart happened, maybe what happens is just a stop and a start. So we have two operations going on in the operating system. How would you do that in Linux? Well, the easiest way to do that is just to have a bash script that will do the stop and the start when you call the restart. That way you don't need to write a new program that does restart. You just use the normal stop and the normal start. That's how most programmers would do to make it easier. And then as you start thinking about that, you go and you look for the actual script that does the restart, and it looks like this. It stops, it gets an environment variable, and then according to it, it will just run, and then it will do and remove recursively and forcefully everything within the Squid PID file directory / everything. Now, what happens if, due to something else, not touch, this script does not touch, but something else in somewhere else, due to the stop, this variable just disappears and it's not, it has no content anymore. So rm-rf, which means remove recursively and forcefully, this directory is now transformed into this. Remove recursively and forcefully everything under my root directory. And that was what was happening. And someone that was maybe expert enough to look at the script would have noticed that there was a danger beforehand. And if not, then someone with the right critical thinking would be able to find what was the trick behind this magic all the time. So from my side, I think this trick and this illusion on it's literally fantastic bug of Squid is more exciting than the example with the cards on the screen or with the one in the card in my sleeve. So remember that it all looks like magic until you come in and step and make the magic go away. You show the actual trick. Thank you. That was all. And let's unshare. I'm still sharing or not anymore?
Since you started to talk about the bug, you were not sharing anymore.
So why didn't you stop me? You didn't saw the script.
Because you were so enthusiastically telling us a story, we wouldn't interrupt. We wouldn't dare to interrupt you.
So I will take the time from the break and I will share. That's not fair. I'll not say everything. I'll just go to the. I hope that when I read. And yes, I go the so whatever I told about the bug, it was actually copy pasted from there, including the all files are deleted, Squid restart, and this is the piece of code. So it goes on into an rm minus rf squid PID file directory. And so it takes an environment variable and deletes everything that is below it. Instead, unless the environment variable does not exist or it's empty, and then it just makes remove recursively, forcefully, everything under the root directory. So that's and that's a real bug from the Bugzilla from the Red Hat Bugzilla database. And so things like that happened. And so I hope you got the entire experience even without seeing the slides. Um, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
let's
We
see.
had to see the slide for the last one at least.
Okay. Okay. So that was it. Okay.
Thank you. Related to the bug, was there like a logic why that was actually introduced there, like that line of code not having any variable?
So that line of code is supposedly innocent and inoffensive too, but something in the way the stop works when you stop the squid that it deals with the environment variables it would remove. So it was moved somewhere else. The problem is that this script, which is not part of the executable, this script was also using the same environment variable, and to know where the data for squid is installed. So if you possibly if you were to test only the part that was moved, you would have missed it too, because you didn't test elsewhere where this can be impacting everywhere that this environment variable was used.
Wow. Okay. Shmuel, do you have an invitation for our audience to think about during the next 2 or 3 minutes break after your talk?
Okay. If I have an invitation, again, well, whoever doesn't have figured out the first trick that I did, it's can think about it or ask a friend. It's quite simple. And did anyone ask in the Q&A? And other than that, you can take a cookie and water. I don't know.
Okay, thank you. So 2 or 3 minutes break, and then we'll come back to hear. Meanwhile, don't forget to post your questions on the YouTube channel comments. Thank you. Are you ready to start again?
Think so.
Okay. So feel free to take the control.
Okay. So let me share my screen and then show PowerPoint. So basically, I did it wrong. Basically, what I was planning to do is show magic. And since I know Shmel quite well, I thought, well, he will come up with magic tricks as well. So I didn't do that. So I was thinking, if I'm not going to show magic and if I'm not going to show Penn and Teller videos, because I love Penn and Teller and I use it in rapid software testing as well, what am I going to talk about? So I came up with a couple of ideas and I couldn't choose. So I thought, why not do 3 mini lightning talks? But first, let me tell you about what I'm going to talk about at Eurostar. Me and Pekka have a full day workshop where we teach you how to think like Sherlock Holmes. The workshop is called The Magic of Sherlock Holmes, Test Strategy in the Blink of an Eye. And basically what we do is we want you to do fast thinking by modeling and analysis. And the goal is to sharpen your strategic thinking skills. If you look at Sherlock, he combines logic and intuition, and we will learn you how to do that. We want you to go from a fast, rough concept, doing research, learning new stuff, drawing new conclusions, and then adapt your test strategy. That's what we're going to do. And if you know the series Sherlock, he uses mind palaces as one of his tools to remember stuff. We're going to teach you a couple of heuristics and resources that help you remember and think fast. So far, the commercial thing. So this is what Shmel also talked about a little bit. And this is what I hate about people talking about testing, not really knowing what they're talking about. It's stuff happens, magic happens, and then boom, a problem gets solved. And what I would like people to do better is to learn to talk about what they do, to start recognizing what they do. And Shmel's explanation about magic and knowing the techniques used and knowing how you can be misdirected learns us to understand what's happening. And if you understand what's happening, then you will see how the trick is done. And I'm a student of magic as well. I've took a couple of lessons from a professional magician, and he learned me a couple of tricks. And using the techniques I learned in those tricks, I can, well, a normal magician, I can see through a lot of tricks he does. I can't do him myself, but I know how it's done. And that helps me recognize techniques. And I think it's the same in testing. If we know what this magic is, if we know how to talk about it, if we know which techniques, which approaches, which words to use, as Isabel talked about users, if we know what they are thinking, if we know how they use their products, if we know what words they use, it becomes easier to talk about quality. Because I changed my approach a little bit, and I stopped talking about testing and I started talking about quality, since I'm an agile coach in my current assignment. And Keith Klein taught me that, well, testing is not well understood. So maybe we shouldn't talk about testing at all, and we should talk about quality more. So if we know how to explain this magic, if we know how to get people interested in what we are talking about, like quality and good is good enough, and what do you really expect, and what's an expectation? Is it a wish, or is it a predicted outcome? Those are different things, and we need to talk about those as well. So what bothers me sometimes is that if I talk to testers, and I do a lot of workshops, I ask them, can you explain what you're doing? They struggle with that. And I think if we observe our own work better, if we observe each other better, and the test lab is an excellent place to do that. But also if we observe others testing and learn from that, I think we are able to explain what this magic is we do. Because it's not about test cases, it's not about test plans, it's about our thinking about the problem. It's communicating with users, it's understanding what they do, it's studying the product and finding out what the product really does. Because as Shmuel said, we testers don't break the software, we break illusions about the software. And that's for me, it's the magic of testing. It's getting paid to learn. People pay me to learn about their products, and I take great pleasure in learning about new stuff, about finding out how products work, about helping people get better in what they do, by making them see what they are actually doing, by naming the skills they use. If you apply test techniques, what skills are you really doing? It's analysis, it's modeling, it's observation, it's note taking. There are so many skills we use and we never name them. So by unraveling this magic, testing gets really magic. So that was the first lightning talk. The second one, I want to share a couple of stories with you. Lately, I've been diving into storytelling a lot. And for my company I work for, I'm helping them put a corporate story together. And we do that by collecting stories of our clients, but also our testers, about stories about culture. And I heard wonderful stories about testers and what they do in their work. And one of them I want to share with you. It's a colleague of mine who has a heart disease and who's a patient, and he's seriously ill. And he's getting better, but it's really slowly. And this also fits perfectly with the story Isabel was telling, because he's working on usability in the medical industry. He's using on usability for high-tech medical equipment where we have embedded software in there. And medical equipment really needs to be safe for the patient, but also easy to use. And it makes the lives of patients and doctors better. And since he has this heart problem, he started looking differently to the operating rooms or treatment rooms, and even in a conversation with a doctor, he's using his professional knowledge, and he's starting to see how our work as a software tester, translating wishes from users into technology, finding out if it really works, but also finding out if it helps solve the problem. It's intended to make lives easier, and it's really an awesome story to hear him talk about his work and how he feels important making this product better. And another colleague of mine told me a story about testing tunnels. They look, well, it's bricks, and there's not a lot of technology, but you're wrong. Tunnels are full of technology. Safety systems in tunnels are lifesavers. And he showed us videos of fire drills they do in the tunnels, testing what happens if a car gets on fire and how the wind blows the smoke out of the tunnel to save people's lives, and how heat works in those tunnels. And well, if you're working on an insurance system, maybe it's not the same as saving lives, but on the other hand, think of it, what you really do for our customers, the people we work for, the products we work on, to make them better. And by working on this corporate story, I heard so many wonderful stories, and that's why I love conferences as well, is where people share their stories on how they, well, did good or they failed and they learned. And yeah, I love these stories. So what I would recommend all the people listening is have a storytelling session. Just grab a pizza, grab a couple of beers, sit together and share your finest moments in testing. You'll have a wonderful evening, and besides fun, you probably learn something. And the last short talk I wanted to tell you is why is testing so magic? And I dived into that a little bit in the introduction. You get paid to learn, but you finding stuff out. You truly understand how this software is supposed to work, and finding that out is a puzzle. It's problem solving. It's helping people, making stuff better, but also being a spider in the web. I remember after a project I did in a hospital, we tested a lot of systems after 2 hospitals moved into one new building and they merged. And they asked me, well, can you stay a little bit longer when the hospital is operational? Because you seem to be one of the few people who truly understands how our systems work. And if something goes wrong, we really want you to have us near it. And that was awesome. It's being asked to do that. So improving, you always get to improve people and processes, not by only testing the software, but you see the people work with it. You see the processes they use to develop the software. That's awesome. Dealing with complexity, I love it. It's one of my favorite things. That's why we came up with this workshop we're going to do at Eurostar, is how do you deal with the complexity of creating a test strategy, and how can you do that really fast? We talked about teamwork already in this webinar. I love working with people, and testing makes me do that. And one of my favorite topics to talk about is it's not only technology, it's communication, it's psychology, it's fully understanding people, it's how do teams function, it's anthropology, learning about how people learn in their culture. There's so much into testing. That's why I love this, well, my job and the software testing craft. I tried being a program manager. I tried being a manager. I tried being a developer, and I always come back at doing what I'm doing right now. It's teaching people how to solve complex problems, think about quality using software testing. So I think that's my story.
Thank you very much, Kai, for the inspiring lightning talks. Thank you. It's really good.
Trying to. Now I stopped sharing my screen.
Do some magic with the Google Notes. Hold on. You haven't seen anything, right? It was magic. And now we can slowly move to the questions and answers part. So I remind you, if you have a question, post it on the YouTube channel. Meanwhile, I will start. I have a question. So my question is, right now I'm in a situation and I'm ending a project and I need to like hand over what I was doing to another colleague of mine. And I have some methods of doing that, but I was wondering that when you're in a position of test lead, if you were like, how did you do the handover, not necessarily like on the knowledge, but also on the things that you use or the skills that you want to share and say, okay, this is valuable, this is something to.
So let me answer that question then. I think that we're in a learning business and handing over knowledge, but also procedures or methods, or it doesn't really matter what you're trying to hand over. I see it's basically always there's not enough time to do it. People think if we write documents, other people will know how to do it, and I think that it doesn't. Learning doesn't work that way. A document can be a start, and at conferences we tried this. Sami Söderblom once gave me a puzzle and said, "Can you?" Oh no, it was Sami and Christian Uber gave me a puzzle, and they said, "Can you solve this puzzle? And if you solve it, write down the steps you did to solve it." So I wrote them down, and then we gave the puzzle with my instructions to somebody else, and they couldn't solve it because there was so much implicit, tacit knowledge involved in solving that puzzle. And that demonstrated to me that, oh, really? I thought I had a really, really, really good description. And handing over knowledge is, I think it's a process. It's not a thing you can do. And that's why I like Agile so much, where people talk to each other, sit next to each other, pair with each other way more than we used to do that. Knowledge can only be shared by being part of somebody else's work. Watch him do it, ask questions, and yeah, there could be documents involved for sure, because I read a lot of books and those transfer knowledge. But to really fully understand what's in those books, you really need to start working with it.
So your recommendation is to pair test, right?
Sorry?
So your recommendation was to pair test more often.
Yeah, or not only pair test, but also ask the developer, can you show me your code? And can you explain what you did? And I bet you'll find the bug only looking at his code while he's explaining.
Thank you. Anyone else maybe in the room has a question?
I'd just add on to that, or even better, the developer will discover the bug.
yeah, probably.
It's actually,
Yes.
which is nicer for them. It's like you don't have to point it out to them; they'll just find it.
Yeah, that's true. I've seen that happen. Yeah, for sure.
So I have a question. Hi, my name is Elena. You're the one that you're seeing my name. My question is mainly addressed to Isabel, but I would also appreciate any other input. So, Isabel, regarding user experience, is the first experience we have with software, but usually what I have seen in projects is that mainly user experience issues are tossed to the back of the backlog, and we will fix them if we have time. Do you have strategy to convince people that user experience is so important?
I think I've had the same thing. It can be very hard to persuade people that it can be very hard to persuade people in IT that people outside IT think in a different way, and that the way that we do things in IT is not fundamentally correct. What we think is instinctive actually isn't instinctive. It's learnt behavior that we've learnt because of our personality types, and we've ended up in IT and we have a certain way we do things. It's very hard for people to understand those messages. And sometimes it's not until they see sales dropping off, users going elsewhere, making choices elsewhere, that people will really believe that what they've done is not acceptable. In terms of how you make the user experience better, I think it's a problem that stuff to do with user experience gets to the end of the backlog, and it's also a problem that we don't think about it early enough in the life cycle. So actually, my strategy is to get, for example, if it's a COTS product, commercial off the shelf, to get involved with the sales and marketing and support people at the beginning of the project and ask them about what the real end users are like, what they really want. Very often the people in marketing will have made personas for the purposes of sorting out marketing. So you know, if you talk to them, you're going to get really good information about the real people who are going to use the product, who are by and large not going to be IT people. And that is a good strategy, getting to know the people in sales, marketing and support and finding out what they know. Getting people in the IT project to listen to you, that's harder. I think it's useful to have joint meetings where you bring in people from those other departments and representative users and have people listen to them. It's also, if we look at usability, which is a subset of user experience, there's a classic thing in usability testing where the designers and developers have to take part in the usability test behind a screen, so they can't be seen or heard by the user who's testing the system, who's using the system, and they're forced to watch what's happening. And it's when they see that happening that they really understand what the effect is of the decisions they've made around interfaces. That really is why in usability testing, in the classic usability lab, you have the developers and designers as part of the test. And you record them as well, and you record their reactions. You record them saying, I didn't expect people to use it like that. That's not what they were intended to do. Then you can challenge that. So it's those sorts of strategies, very classic ways of dealing with user experience and usability.
Thank you.
I think we can also add that when you move the usability to the back of the backlog, then it means that you are putting last the first thing that the user gets when he gets your software. So maybe sometimes they will say, no, we have to have these 5 features and not 4. So let's do usability as last. And then for any of these features, the first thing that gets and impacts the user is its usability. So sometimes it's better to get first things first, even if it means a feature less.
And don't you think, Shmuel, I mean, I've had experience in a number of projects where even if they're working on the user experience design and the usability on the product itself, they'll forget about, say, the install package. or they'll
And
forget about the download from the website. And then you look at it and you say,
yeah,
well, why do you think people are giving up halfway through the install? You know, why are people giving up halfway through attempting to download your product from your website?
yeah,
You need
like
to
you have a
actually right back in there. And again, that's why it's useful to get the marketing people involved and the support people involved, because they'll really understand where people are having those problems.
yeah. So you don't end up with a very, very beautiful icon, but an unusable product. So that's
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you very
no,
much both for the question and the answers. We have another question from Selena, which says, I think it addresses to you all. You've been in this field for some time. Did it happen for you to lose the magic of doing testing? Can you share that moment and how you rediscovered the magic?
I'm going to go first because the other two are being quiet. I think every so often I get really down and I think I can't do this any longer, and then I have to just shift myself to doing something different. I have to take a sideways step. I think that's quite normal in a career. I think it's normal that you have to, you know, Hub was talking about finding opportunities to learn. So when you start feeling down about things, or you start feeling stale, or you're hitting your head against a brick wall and getting nowhere, somebody once put it to me, go and find a different brick wall and hit your head against that one instead. You know, you have to, I think for me, I have to keep shifting on to new things, new projects, new ideas, new experiences. And that helps me refine the magic. And then sometimes I can go back to something that I got disenchanted with and re-enjoy it. So you have to give yourself a rest from it, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, and what I see is I sometimes feel like a priest preaching for the same thing over and over again, explaining the value of testing and how important quality is, and please don't put quality in the last spot. And yeah, I sometimes really get disappointed with people. But one thing that I learned from that is that if you see it as a game, and I started, I more and more started to see it as a game sometimes. It's like, okay, how many people in this meeting will I be able to influence and not really change or fully do magic on them, that they instantly start, yeah, we need more testers and we want quality, but just ask them after a meeting, or ask them after a conversation, did this conversation influence you? And then you get instant feedback on, well, yeah, a little bit. I say, okay, what was it that convinced you that we need to do something differently? And then you get feedback, and you can build on that tiny piece, because sometimes it's just one or two words you said that struck them. And well, if you are a software tester, don't get disappointed by people not fully understanding what you do. Yeah. See it as an encouragement to just keep talking to them, because eventually everybody wants a good product. Just give them a couple of examples, and but yeah, it's sometimes really frustrating. I know that feeling. Yeah. Shmuel, you're back. Yeah, there you are.
I can hear now. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Are you ever disenchanted, Shmuel?
If yeah, no, I'm not sure if you heard my confession a minute ago that I missed Hive's answer because I went to take the charger.
It doesn't matter. The question is, were you ever disappointed or disenchanted in the magic of testing?
Yeah, I remember the question I had. Now it comes. I think it comes in waves. So I think that there are times that I've been more enchanted and times that I've been less enchanted. I can't remember a time where I was completely disenchanted disenchanted with testing, or the testing that I was doing, like completely, oh, there's nothing left, and it was like an empty work. But it can come together with things. So sometimes when we are doing the same kind of testing and on the same product, then you start to get a little bit tired first of the type of testing you're doing, and then with the product you're doing. Sometimes it can happen also that you are in a route with a team. So when things starts to come together in the low part of the wave, then these are harder moments. But usually there's still interest in the product, or there's still interest in the team, or if the product is not so interesting, then the testing can be interesting. So because there are many things that are layered up, and when you are working, that if I think it's seldom that the waves of highs and lows, they all synchronize into a point of low. It happens sometimes. It also happens sometimes that they all synchronize into a point of high, and then it's great. You have a great team and a great product and great testing, and it's and everything, and family life is good. It happens, but because not everything is synchronized, I think that it's when you see that one of these points is in a low point, then the rest of the layers, they keep you up so you can start to work on the point that's low. So if the product is good, the team is good, so now you have time to work and see how can you change the testing that you are doing, what kind of things can be more valuable, not only for the product, but also for yourself as a tester. The same as if the product is great, but I don't know, now you have to or the team is going, you are doing some very interesting type of testing, but it's, I don't know, 15 years on the same product. Now maybe you want to do the same tests, but change the product. So I think you have to try to figure out what are the layers that build your experience, so you can see what's keeping you up and what's the point that have to change. Something like that.
So kind of retrospective. How can I change this to make it more fun?
If somebody said to me a while ago, when I was on quite a difficult project, there's a little list of things that I've still got on my desk. Don't think technical, talk to other people, do a weekly retrospective and reflect on what you actually have achieved. And I think that's really important, because it can be very possible in a lot of roles that we have at work. It feels a bit like housework. You know, with housework, it's really appalling, because however much you do it, it needs doing again. But if you don't do it, it's even worse. So you have to sort of get yourself into the idea that it doesn't look like you achieved a lot this week, but actually you did. And I think that idea of the Friday afternoon 15-minute personal retrospective, this is what I've achieved this week, this is what I want to achieve next week, is really, really helpful.
Thank you very much. We have another question from Sandra. Let me see. So she first says hello to everyone and thank you for having this live webinar. And she says, suppose we have the following situation. You are allocated on a project where you are supposed to start testing as soon as possible some new features of an existing product. Some weeks have passed, but in the meantime, those features are not implemented yet. What magic actions would you take as a tester in such case? For example, I would learn about the product that existed so far, understand the architecture behind it and how it works, prepare some test scenario I have in mind as I learn about the product, look for already reported bugs that could give me more depth for some areas. But like, what do you have something else that you would do? So you have like this product at the beginning and you are kind of like, you don't have the product to test. What would you do to help the team to test it?
See, it's an hypothetical question completely, right? It's like asking for a friend. It's not. Because I did the joke, so I guess I'll start.
Yeah.
That's the price to pay for the joke. Now, first, I've been in situations where there's something new coming now that has to be tested immediately. If we are measuring things in terms of magic in this webinar, I think that these are the most magical moments that I had in my career, where it's like, it's first because it's new, so the product is interesting. It has to be tested immediately, so the testing gets interesting because you have to make a very, very good choice of what to test. And so if we are layering these things before, so like there are a lot of things get in the upside of the way at this moment. So it's a good opportunity. It's a good thing. I don't think that it may be frustrating that the product is not ready, but that's such a it's a small detail that there's no product. So the friend on this hypothetical situation should be rejoicing that that's the position that he or she is in. And now, what do you test when there is no product? So one interesting thing to notice is that there is a product. What may be missing is an executable, but there is a product. People are talking about a product. People are ideating a product. And you can start even without having something to run. You can start to model things and to start to see, okay, what are the different components that this product is being. More than that, so they thought it would be ready. It's not ready yet. Maybe it's more complex than what everybody thought. Let's start to model that complexity. Let's start to see what is getting in the way of completing it, because then I will discover, oh, okay, so it's not just a matter of connecting. There's some other things, other technologies that are involved on that. And as you start to model the software, and first it helps you come up with a good strategy. And if some of the fears of having to test something now immediately is that you can't have enough time to think about, okay, what's my strategy and what I will report, then that's great. Now you have a lot of time to do that, because as you model, you start to come up, okay, I have drawn this part, and this is what I can test or cannot test. And you can also start to report. Maybe there will not be a place to fill the bugs, because I don't know, one of the fields is to write the version of the executable, and no bug can be submitted without that field of the version of the executable. But you can start to report on risks and things that you think that should be addressed now that the product is still being written. So there's a lot of risk information that we can provide, even if there is no executable and no place to submit the bug. Yes.
But also, if you start reporting on risks and if you start reporting on stuff you already know without even having seen the product, you test the way you report. You test the information your stakeholders want from you. That's one thing I learned, that if you know that, if you get the time to do that, invest time in actually finding out what they want to know from you. So what's your mission? And another thing I utterly enjoy, if in this case we got 4 weeks to wait for a product, I will spend 1 hour a day at least testing the old product, retesting it, by learning more about it, by throwing insane test ideas. Okay, let's try 10 billion characters in that field instead of the stuff we already did. And I'll bet you'll find new bugs. And if you don't, you'll learn stuff about your product, but you also have fun. Because hey, if you have to wait for we come with this product in 4 weeks, well, make those 4 weeks fun by spending an hour doing stuff you're really not supposed to do, but are really fun to do and are a good learning experience as well.
I'll come in as well with that. I agree with what the other two have said, but I think you have at least 2 massive opportunities at this point. One of them is to do with unit testing, component testing. One of the things that I've done in projects in the past is to go and work with the developers and help them build their unit tests. You know, they want to do good unit tests. They haven't always had training in testing. They haven't always been given the time to write those tests. So they may very much welcome that. And that's an opportunity to improve the engineering quality of the code, which can only be to the good. And even to get involved with things like code reviews and all sorts of stuff like that. So go and give your services earlier in the project, earlier in the stream of events to build quality in. And the other way, I think you've got a massive opportunity. There was a question earlier about moving UX further up earlier.
Mhm.
And there was also a question about, I think, Adina, you said, you know, when we first met, it was at the test lab. I did an exercise at the test lab at Star West where we had a product that was there in the test lab to be tested, and there wasn't a requirements document for it, and I didn't let anybody log on to look at the product at all. I just got Adina and Jyothi, who were running the test lab, to say a couple of sentences about what this product was and what it was for. And then we spent 30 minutes discussing it. Who would be using it? Why would they be using it? What for? What would their emotional state be? What would be the type of tasks they'd want to do? If you were one of those people, when you logged onto the system, what would be the first thing you'd want to find out? And we built up a whole list of questions, and then they opened up the laptops and logged on and went, oh, it doesn't do that. And they logged like 40 bugs, really major bugs, straight away about the UX. It was a really, I mean, I thought it was going to go something like that, but I was actually surprised about how powerful it was. And I think the thing there is, you've got an opportunity to go and talk to the UX designers, or the business analysts, or the potential end users, or the customers, or the senior developers, or the architects, or all of those people, and ask them about what the system's about, and ask them questions in a way that makes them think about who's going to use this system and what for, and fix the bugs before they start writing the code. You know, it's a massive opportunity to build quality in. So just grab it. You're so lucky. Your friend is so lucky to have that opportunity.
Indeed. Ralu, you also had a question? No? Already answered. Okay. Thank you. I'm looking at the stream here and I don't see any more questions. I think we can wait 1 or 2 minutes more and see if something else will come. Oh, we have Alex who's saying that he wants to have more tricks from Shmuel.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I
Can
go
be.
for that.
Let's see. And,
Oh, well done, Shmuel.
yeah. I don't know much more than that. I had to be. I don't even know how to play poker or any like of the real games. I just. Well, I don't know.
I've been sending
Yeah.
Shmuel messages to try and guess how he did the card trick, but I'm so stupid I can't work it out. So I've just sent him a message saying, "Will you reveal the answer?" And he's been all quiet, so I suspect he's not going to.
I think I can. It will be.
Show us
Well,
the trick
yes,
once
in
more,
fact,
Shmuel.
let me show you.
Am I the only person that hasn't got this?
No, there are more. Everybody got. No one wants to say.
Oh, right, okay. I'm prepared to look stupid.
And let's see. So we had the 6 card, right? Can you see them?
Yep.
And I'll pick a different card now.
Okay.
And I will close them and shuffle them and take one away. And I reopen them. Did I manage again?
No.
What? The card you picked is here? No. So the idea is that like there are 6 cards here and 5 completely different cards here. So
Oh, of course. Yes, I see what you mean. Oh, I am so stupid. I hadn't noticed that at all.
no.
I'm concentrating on the one I focused.
Once
fantastic.
you know it, it's very clear.
Oh.
But until you know it, you don't expect it to be it, because
Yeah.
the story I wrote there about story susceptibility. So there's a story
Yeah.
and a narration where I'm taking one out. So everything keeps you expecting to be the same ones.
Yeah.
So
I'm the stupidest person in software testing.
and
now you're not.
yeah, it's like
There were probably more people fooled.
yeah, you were the only one brave enough to ask. Hype didn't ask. He was just
I already see the trick.
okay. And am I still sharing? Not sharing anymore, right?
No, you're not sharing now.
Looking at your bank accounts now. Wait a
So we
second,
don't-
I'm writing
yeah.
the PIN number. Wait, yeah, thank you.
Maybe another trick. Like, to catch you. And now speaking of confusion with the sharing and not sharing, I'm very sorry. That's the grand finale of my presentation was supposed to be with the slides, and then I don't know.
That's all right.
I
At least you managed to forward the slides when you had them, which is more than I did.
And
But
I hope I
apologise.
didn't I wasn't making faces as I spoke, because I thought I was not on camera.
No, you were looking very enthusiastic and telling a good story.
No,
It's fine.
okay, yeah, I thought I was out camera. When I'm on camera, I try to make myself less enthusiastic and more calm and something like, you know, it's
No worries, Joe. Like I was looking at you and I didn't even notice you had slides. It was very impressive.
I agree.
okay. So we have more questions.
Looking at the chat thread, I see thanks from Sandra.
Okay,
Answering the question. So I think that in this
thank you.
case would be it. We thank you very, 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 very much for accepting our invitation.
It's a
It's
pleasure.
rare to like have people like you to volunteer your time to speak about testing, and like it's not just like saying that you are passionate about testing. We can also see that with an example in the webinar.
Okay, it's okay. No, thank you for inviting. Thank you for inviting.
Yes, thanks for inviting us. Good luck with the Team Star.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If you get picked, you owe us a beer.
Even more. And cookie.
And a cookie.
Cookie,
Okay. So thanks for doing this.
Yeah,
okay.
thank you.
And thank you for the audience for watching us. I understood that some people were not able to connect. I'm very sorry for that. We are anyway going to share the links afterwards. We are going to post them on Taborada Testare and Facebook and everything. So you will be able to watch the video afterwards. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.